Hello there, if you're watching this, I would assume that you might be looking to embark on a solo travel journey, or at least hoping to plan one soon. Be it your first time leaving home to live in a foreign country, or you're just looking to add an adventurous twist to your travel plans this year by going solo, I believe that I can help save you some troubles to not make the same mistakes that I did and to have the foresight that will make things much easier for you. Before making this video, I watched about 5 other similar videos on YouTube, and I felt like I didn't want to just add on to another one of those typical solo travel mistakes that beginners make type of video. Many of those have already covered the basics like safety tips, overpacking, and how not to get scammed. But today I hope that what I am going to share with you is going to be valuable in a not so typical approach. So I've been asked before, what's the worst thing that has happened to me on my solo travel trips? And my response to this question is the same as when I sat down to think of the points to share today, which is, let me think. I think I've been pretty lucky so far. Well, with that said, that doesn't mean that I haven't had any crappy experiences, but more in the sense that I believe that they were out of the overlooks on my part on planning during the trip instead of something that was threatening or harmful. If I had to come up with an answer, I think I'll probably say, well, there was one time when my luggage got delayed and was left behind in Seattle when I'm already in Alaska. But then again, it wasn't that bad because I had my carry-on luggage with me and I had all of my essentials in that bag. I am very thankful that I have not had any crazy life-threatening experiences, but I would say that there are some tips that I wish I knew from the near misses, or tips that I've learned along the way that would have made me a smarter solo traveler. Well, if you're like me, I really don't like to be over skeptical of things, and when it comes to solo traveling, I would say that I am a little bit more gutsy than the usual average Joe, and maybe a little stubborn or naive, or just not wanting to be over paranoid so as to ruin my travel experience. But I do have a fair share of stories in multiple destinations to share some of the tips and lessons that have come up of them. To be fair, now that I look back at my solo travel experiences, I would agree that they all sound crazier in theory than it actually was. For example, my first destination after leaving home was actually in a city called Yellowknife in subarctic Canada. I had an agreement to stay with a local under a workaway arrangement. All that I had was a single video call with my host, and my friends were like, "Are you serious? You're flying all the way across the world just to meet and live with a stranger?" Well, fair point. Another example when I did something similar was when I made an impromptu decision to go to northern Norway because I really missed seeing the northern lights. So I reached out to multiple people on Workaway platform again and showed up in the middle of the night in front of a stranger's house. Without really knowing exactly how my host is, who is he as a person, things like that. Actually, that does sound pretty wild. If you've been watching this channel for a while now, you know that I am a huge fan of solo traveling through work exchanges, where you get to stay with locals in exchange for your time and skills to help out with whatever the host needs help with. I strongly recommend this way of traveling as it has definitely been one of the most fulfilling ways to see new places for me, and I really am hoping to have the chance to do another one soon. And if you would like, you can check out my workaway experiences that I'm going to link here. And without further ado, let's get to the juicy parts of today's video. Since I have started off this video with the idea of talking about house sitting or workaway experience, I would like to share how you can, as a solo traveler, take some precautions when you try to reach out to hosts for such opportunities, because things can actually not turn out as good as they have for me. Sometimes you might not really know the other person on the other end of the deal, but there are some things that I would do to lower the chances that this could turn out to be something risky or unsafe or not pleasant for me. For example, to ask for a chance to get on a video call. The reason for that is that when you talk to someone on a video call, you can kind of get a sense of how they are like, their temperament, whether they are a bit strange, or they're just a nice person in general. This doesn't mean that you are 100% able to prevent any bad things from happening, but it does give a pretty good sense. And if something feels off during this video call, politely let the person know, or even raise some concerns or ask questions so that you can get a better understanding of what you're getting yourself into. Maybe ask the person to show you the place that you're going to be staying in. Yeah, just be curious and find out things that you are not necessarily very comfortable with. Another thing that can be very helpful is to look for the host reviews. So on Workaway or HelpX platforms, there's this function where you can leave reviews for your host. Usually I would do a quick look at the comments that the host has received, and most of the time I would get a pretty good sensing of whether or not this is an opportunity I want to take up. For me, when I was having my workaway experience in northern Norway, I was lucky enough to have a friend who has stayed in that city before when she was on her student exchange, and she happens to have some contacts who are still in that same location, and she offered to give me contacts of some of her friends just in case things go south and I actually needed someone to reach out to. But thankfully I didn't. I had a really wonderful stay there. And as usual, do your research. For example, look up on Google Maps, is this place that you are going to stay at exclusively remote? What does the surrounding look like? If something bad happened, could you run out of the house and seek help? I feel like these are just some of the things that goes through my mind as I look at workaway experience listings to decide whether or not I feel comfortable and safe enough to take on the offer. Number 2, I feel like the next tips that I'm going to share are not completely isolated just for solo travelers, because things like this can happen to you as well if you're traveling in a group or with your friends. But I do feel that these are some things that are more specific to if you're traveling alone, because you kind of have to deal with everything yourself. It does get more taxing compared to if you're with other people. The second thing that I would like to share would be that to know your limits and that it's okay to ask for help. Your limits can be in terms of your alcohol limits, your physical endurance. Let's say you're going for a hike or you're doing like an adventurous activity. It could be emotional, knowing when you need to be surrounded by other people, and also in terms of budget limits, in terms of time limits. So in terms of physical limits, there was one time when I was snowboarding by myself in Anchorage in Alaska, and I was actually a very pretty beginner snowboarder. So where I had practiced snowboarding was nothing compared to the mountain that I was on in Alaska. The snow on the mountain itself was also not in the best condition because it was almost the end of snowboarding season, and to be honest, I kept sliding down the hill on my ass, and there was one point where I actually got hurt in my lower back. When it comes to physical limits, I would say know your limits, and if you need help and if you need a buddy to accompany you down, don't be afraid to voice out. I know you can feel like, oh, I'm such a loser, I can't get down the slope, or I can't complete this hike. Just put down your ego and ask the next person you see that comes along to help you. I also have another story to share when it comes to knowing your time limits. So this one was when I was spending some time in Amsterdam, I believe. So when I travel, I usually have my huge 25 kg backpack with me. So I usually travel and find a luggage storage where I could chuck my entire bag in and just carry a small bag and roam around for the day. What happened in this case was that I didn't know that the locker, which was located at the train station, was going to be closed past 12 midnight, because the train that I was waiting for was going to leave at 1 a.m. So I just took it for granted and assumed that the locker room was going to stay open as well, and I didn't do my research and I didn't check. When I reached the locker room, I realized that the shutters were down. It was written outside that the locker storage was closed from 12 midnight onwards. I was freaking out and I felt very lost at that point because I was only going to be there for the night. I had a bus to catch to go back to Germany. Long story short, thankfully the train station masters helped me and I managed to get my bag in the end, but know your time limits. The next thing I want to share about is cutting your itinerary in half. If you're like me, I think I'm a superwoman, I can get many things done in a day, but no. What I find helps is by reducing the number of things I want to do and see in a single day. When you're traveling alone, you are basically your own tour guide, you're your own planner. You have to keep track of time, you have to solve problems as they come up for you, you have to be in charge of navigating, getting from one place to another, getting your tickets, blah blah blah. There's a whole lot of things that you have to do by yourself. If you give yourself more time to get to a destination, it can be much more mentally relaxing and not so pressurizing. At the same time, I have realized through experience that what you think is going to take 1 hour, it's usually going to take at least 2 times more. There are going to be instances where you find out, oh, I actually need to take one more connecting bus from this train station to the airport. I did not know that. Or you could realize that you are going through the customs and you have passed it, and then you are going to your airport gate, and then you realize, oh no, there is another line for you to queue up because you're not from Europe. Having your itinerary cut by half and traveling on a pace that is more manageable will just make your solo travel experience much more relaxing. Trust me on this one. So number 4, this one is a funny one. I am not sure about your experience, but when I am on my own and traveling by myself, I am extra super independent. I've got everything laid out. I know where I have to go and where I have to be, and I'm super well prepared. But when I'm traveling with someone else, I just am 10 times more chill and rely more on the other person. This is based on a true story. When I went on a trip with one of my really, really good friends, I was shocked at myself because I was not prepared for things, as I know I would have been if I were alone. When you're with another person, you can work difficulties out with each other, but if you're on your own, you have to mostly rely on yourself. So it's very important to have backup plans for things. Make sure that you have the bare minimum that you need to get settled down in the place that you're going to. Another example of having a backup plan is when I was taking a long distance train across Canada. I didn't prepare in advance to have enough data on my SIM card. So what happened was that I couldn't access Google Maps, but I had wandered out of the train station trying to find a petrol station so that I could get some snacks. But in the end, I kind of got lost and I panicked a little bit because the train was going to leave in 20 minutes, and if I didn't get back to the station, I would essentially miss my train and I couldn't refer to my Google Maps. For smarter, at that point in time, I would probably have downloaded the map of the neighborhood I was in with the free Wi-Fi in the train station before I left so that I could refer to my offline map. So when you're traveling alone, it's better to be safe than sorry, especially when it comes to essential things like navigation, having money to pay for things that you need and stuff like that. The last thing that I have to share is be smart, but act dumb. I'm sure everyone has seen these trending videos where girls act like they are possessed by zombies so that strangers don't come up to them at night. This is an alternative version of that. So this is in the context of knowing when you are in a situation where it can get a bit tricky and being smart enough to act dumb. So something that happened to me when I was traveling alone to the north of Thailand was an overnight train, and no one else was in the train. It was just me and this other guy. Early morning when I woke up, I opened my eyes and I saw this guy sitting in front of me, and he turned around and looked at me and started trying to converse with me. His signaling and his body language, I came to know that he was up to no good. So at that point, there was no one else that I could turn to for help, so I just acted like I was stupid. I didn't know what he was saying, so I just kept doing like I just ignored him and just pretended that I didn't know what he wanted. In conclusion, maintaining a general sense of awareness and knowing when you should be smart about things or to act like you don't know what's going on can be some ways that you can get yourself out of dangerous situations. Well, with that, that's the end of today's video. Let me know if there's anything else you would like to learn about solo traveling in the comments, and I would be sure to look at them. And thank you for being here today. Until the next one, bye!